Vladimir Putin's personal anti-aging doctor was able to isolate the specific peptide that our brains release when we're in our deepest stage of rest. It only comes between 2 and 4 a.m. This peptide has been able to repair damaged DNA as well as reverse chronological age, yet the American medical system refuses to acknowledge it. In this video, I'm covering the 3 best peptides you need to look at when it comes to your sleep, recovery, and anti-aging. As you guys know, I am a fanatic about my own personal tracking, especially when it comes to sleep. I use my Whoop. That's going to test my recovery, how well I sleep, how deep I sleep. And for those of you that have been in the game for a while, you know there is nothing that's going to make it harder to build muscle, lose fat, and feel good than bad sleep. The goal for the video today is to teach you guys about my own experience as well as the anecdotal experience of a ton of other people who have used some of the most popular sleep and recovery peptides, as well as some personal habits you guys can follow to make sure you're getting the best sleep possible for the optimal output in performance and recovery. Now, before we get into the video, it's important to note I'm not a doctor. Nothing I say in this video should be misconstrued with medical advice. And if you're going to follow any of the protocols we talk about today, make sure you're only doing so under direct medical supervision. Now, without any further ado, let's get into the video. Right now, I've got a really good sleep program going on, but it wasn't always that way. There were times where I was going to bed at 3 a.m. some nights, 12 o'clock some nights, and then try to go to bed at 9 the next. There's no way your body can keep up with that schedule, and over time, your body begins to shut down when it doesn't know when to go to sleep. Before we get into the peptides, let's understand why this is so important. 1 in 3 adults in the United States gets less than 7 hours of sleep. That is an ugly statistic. Over 33%, more than 1 in 3 adults in the United States sleep less than 7 hours every night, per CDC data. In the United States alone, there's between 50 and 70 million people with diagnosed sleep disorders. And the worst part is most people don't realize how bad it is because it seems like everybody has this problem. So if you're up late working or you go to work early and you're not getting a full 8 hours of sleep, most people just tell you, yeah, that's part of the job. You kind of have to deal with it. That is detrimental to your health, and you're going to learn why in this video. A lot of you on this page fall into one of 3 buckets, one of the biggest ones being people who are looking to build muscle. Now, if you're trying to build muscle and you're not getting at least 7 hours of sleep per night, your muscle building and protein synthesis drops by 18 to 25%. Meaning if you're working out 4 days a week, you just eliminated 1 day a week just because you weren't getting proper sleep. Conversely to that, if you're only working out 4 days a week, you can add an extra day of results if you can just sleep a full 7 to 8 hours per night. Think about how much more effort you're putting into the next supplement, your next workout, trying to pick apart all these little tiny things when the big glaring issue is just that you're not sleeping enough. And for those of you guys that are looking at fat loss, kiss that goodbye, because fat loss becomes next to impossible when sleep is not in check. Just 1 night of short sleep increases the hunger hormone in our body by over 24%. Everybody's so virtuous on their weight loss journey and they always want to push harder and do more. I'm asking you to do less, stay in bed, and you'll lose more weight. Think about how crazy of a concept that is. Now I could continue down the rabbit hole about how many bad things there are when it comes to your testosterone, your cognitive output, and just your overall functioning as a human being, but that's not why we're in this video. The point of this video is to teach you guys how we can do something about it. And just like in all my videos, I'm not just going to teach you guys about the peptides that work, I'm also going to teach you about the supplement stack you can use around it to build it to work even better. Starting with the first one on the list, which is my favorite sleep peptide that I have ever used, and I'm going to dive right into my favorite from the beginning because you guys all need to know about Epitalon. Now it's spelled a little funky, it's Epithalon, but it's pronounced Epitalon. Like a lot of the best peptides, it was made in Russia by Dr. Nachinson, who was Vladimir Putin's personal anti-aging doctor during his tenure. Nachinson created the protocol as a direct means of extending our lifespans by improving our sleep, rest, and recovery, as well as the quality of our DNA. In this video, I won't break down as much of the anti-aging benefits, but the main thing to focus on is what it does to our pineal gland. Pineal gland, however you want to pronounce it, the gland in your brain responsible for producing melatonin. Now, a lot of people are familiar with melatonin because of the supplements that people sell, which help you sleep and rest a little bit better. For me, I'm someone who's always avoided melatonin supplements, not for any scientific reason, but if there is a way that I can fix that problem without having to supplement, I always try to do that first, which is why I love Epitalon. Your pineal gland is the gland in your brain that is going to produce melatonin and decide when our body is going to produce it. That's our circadian rhythm. If you've heard that word before, your circadian rhythm is nothing more than when your body starts to produce its melatonin, which is why if you wear a Whoop or an Oura Ring or a whatever, you'll see your score start start to go down when you have sleep inconsistency, right? So when you're going to bed at different times, your body starts getting out of whack and it can't get into as deep of sleep because you're teaching it, I'm going to start at 3 a.m. one night and then I'm going to start at 11 p.m. the next. We only get into our deepest level of sleep after we've been already sleeping for a little while. So if you're only starting at 3 a.m., normally your body's in its deepest level by 3 a.m. The next day, it doesn't know which way to go. You're feeding it too many mixed signals, which is why one of the biggest things you can do for your sleep quality is just going to bed and waking up at the same time every single day. Now, that's much easier said than done. I'm certainly someone who even lately has had Saturday nights that go until 5 or 6 in the morning, so I am not the best candidate for this, but this is exactly why I'm using Epitalon, because it resets my body's internal clock. So all I have to do is just start going to bed at the right times again, and my body will automatically recalibrate. It wouldn't have done that alone, which is why the Epitalon becomes so powerful. In human studies, Epitalon was able to increase melatonin by up to 50% in its applicants. The interesting part is the results only increased with age. So the older the applicant, the more effective the peptide was. Your circadian rhythm is like a grandfather clock that's been running for however many years you've been alive. Over time, that clock starts to get rusty. No matter how many times you reset it back to the right time, it's never going to be able to keep up because the hands have such a hard time moving. They're rusted shut. So your body might think it's 10 p.m., really it's 2 a.m., and you're not producing the amount of melatonin necessary for 2 a.m., which is why your sleep is shit. Just like a rusty clock can't keep time no matter how many times you set it, your body isn't going to recalibrate just because you decide to start going to bed earlier. You have to manually reset it from the inside. I am a tremendous advocate of keeping your pineal gland healthy and active. It's not just for sleep. It has incredible receptive abilities when it comes to your overall output, the way your mind works. And it's why so many users, when they use Epitalon, talk about feeling this serene experience where you just have this clean internal processing where everything around you just kind of starts to feel correct again. A lot of you guys who have been in those ruts where you're just going to bed, waking up, and you're not really all the way there mentally. You're having a hard time with your recollection. You're just not feeling the same output you used to. A lot of that is coming directly from your pineal gland. But there's no blood test you're ever going to get from your doctor that's going to say, here's why you feel like shit, it's because of your pineal gland, or here's why you're not performing like you used to. They're never going to tell you that. So these are the things you kind of have to trial and error to find out which was the problem. For me, I noticed this right away. It is why I'm such a big fanatic of Epitalon and why I will always scream about it from the rooftops, because this is something I felt as someone who was working late nights, waking up early, and just getting in that rut of improper sleep. Now, I still only sleep 7 hours a night, but it's the best 7 hours because my body knows when I'm going to go to bed, when I'm going to wake up, and in that middle time, it knows rest and recover, nothing else. Moving on to number 2, another peptide I am very fond of, as well as I get a ton of positive feedback on, and that's Selank. Selank will make you feel that same serenity, just on a different pathway. Selank's job is to modulate your GABA receptor. Your GABA receptor is how our body processes stress, anxiety, and all of the things that kind of keep our brain active when we're trying to get restful sleep. You know how sometimes you're tossing and turning, or you wake up in the middle of the night because you had an idea, and all of a sudden you can't sleep because you got to do it right now, otherwise the world's going to fall apart? That's your GABA receptor. Clinical trials in Russia found that Selank reduced anxiety scores by anywhere between 40 and 60% on average. But what's interesting about it is it doesn't only improve your stress level, it also improves the way your body handles stress. So it improves the way that you perform under a stressful environment. It does this by lowering what's called your pro-inflammatory cytokines, big word there, but it's the stuff in your brain that is responsible for creating them. It does this by lowering your pro-inflammatory cytokines, which sounds like a mouthful, but all it is the parts of your brain that are responsible for that overthinking and monotony. Think of your brain at night like a crowded airport. There's planes taking off, alarms blaring, people are rushing all over the place. Russian, no pun intended. Selank is like the calming air traffic controller where he just moves all the planes out, tells everybody, hey, all of your flights are going to be on time. There's no need to run. You can walk. Everybody gets checked in. There's no delays. There's no annoying people hogging up the line. Everything starts to flow perfectly. That's your Selank. And I want to be clear here, Selank doesn't knock you out. It's not like a Xanax or something that's going to induce sleep. All it's going to do is remove the things that are inhibiting sleep, like stress, like overthinking, like an active brain. It's just going to bring you down to a more stable wavelength to keep you in the optimal state to rest and recover in the most appropriate way possible. Speaking of wavelengths, this brings me to number 3, which has shown incredible results, and that is DSIP, delta sleep inducing peptide. DSIP is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, sleep promoting peptide. Bringing it back to the wearables, if you guys do wear any, you'll usually see a tab somewhere in the sleep category that says restorative sleep, deep sleep, delta sleep. That is the only kind of sleep we're looking for. A lot of people get this mixed up where they think, okay, I slept 8 hours, so I must be okay. That's a good benchmark, but the only number we're truly chasing is our delta sleep, our restorative sleep. I would rather get 6 hours of sleep, but all 6 hours are in delta, than get 8 hours of sleep, but only 4 of them. The only thing that actually rests and recovers us, builds muscle, loses fat, keeps our brain sharp is going to be delta sleep, which is why delta sleep inducing peptide has become so popular, because it gets people into that state faster and keeps them in it for longer. If you've ever been known to be a light sleeper or a restless sleeper, that means you are not getting into the deepest state of sleep possible. This could be a very viable option for some of you that are in that state. Human studies show that DSIP increases slow wave deep sleep by anywhere between 20 and 30% on average. It also raises growth hormone secretion during deep sleep stages, so by itself, you will already start to notice better muscle recovery, better fat loss, better overall function of the human body just from the increase in growth hormone. If we want to imagine our body as a big construction site, and as soon as we start sleeping, our body goes to work, starting to repair, starting to fix everything. DSIP is like giving all those guys power tools, just getting the job done faster with the same amount of people. Again, this is going to be really powerful for people who go to sleep fine, that just don't stay asleep, or they wake up still feeling tired or unrefreshed. A lot of that means that you just didn't get into enough delta sleep. This is something that could be really powerful for you. Now, if you don't fall in this group and you're someone who says, well, I have trouble falling asleep, that's where I would veer more towards something like the Epitalon, because that's going to tell your body, okay, I want to go to bed at this time. This is when I need to produce that melatonin. So between all three of these, you really cover every path for why someone might be having sleep trouble. If you can't get to bed, it's going to be that Epitalon. If you just can't turn your brain off, a lot of people will say that they'll smoke weed or they'll do whatever to try to turn their brain off, or they'll have a couple drinks at night. Not a fan of that. Incredibly detrimental to your sleep. Using something like Selank is a much more viable option. Number one, way more effective, but number two, it also won't disrupt any of your sleep patterns. And then for people who can get to sleep, but they just can't stay asleep, or they're just not feeling the whole rested thing, that's who would really benefit from something like DSIP. So one of those three pillars is always going to be most beneficial. Now, as promised, I do always make sure that I give you guys the proper supplementation to pair with these things, because peptides, although they are incredibly effective, they are never a 100% fix. I like to get people up to 100 as much as possible. Starting with some basic lifestyle things, if you can finish all of your food 3 hours before you go to bed, you will have dramatically different sleep, because your body is not actively trying to digest while you're going to bed. That means your body is in an active state, right? You are burning cellular energy. Although you're always burning cellular energy, you're burning a lot more when you're trying to digest your food. This will also make fat loss dramatically easier, because when you're sitting horizontal like that as you're going to bed, you're not giving the optimal pathway for your body to digest, and then some things start getting stuck and it gets messy, and then you start putting on fat stores. The second lifestyle thing that has been a huge game changer for me is just going on digestion walks, specifically after your last meal of the day, but I try to do them after every meal. If you can go walk around for 15-20 minutes, 10 minutes after you finish your last meal, your sleep is going to change from day one. Just the difference in the way that your body processes that glycogen is going to be a drastic change, and you will feel it night one. Now, some of this stuff might seem like a no-brainer, but for some people it's not. Of course, you're going to hear things like no blue light consumption 90 minutes before bed, but the honest truth is that's just not a reality for most people, especially if you work a lot, you need to look at your phone. So the more things you can do to try to mitigate the high stress activities and really have those in the morning, you don't want your cortisol spiked at night. You want your cortisol spiked first thing in the morning. That's when you're going to get the most use out of it. And then you want it to gradually taper down throughout the day. That's how you're going to get the most optimal output as well as the most optimal recovery. Now, when it comes to supplementation, the stack that I've been running for a long time that has done really well for me starts with magnesium glycinate. It's very nervous system calming, as well as it is a cofactor for melatonin production. So a lot of people like to pair this with Epitalon. Anywhere from 300 to 400 milligrams a night seems to do the trick. Apigenin is another one I've been running for a little while. If you watch any Huberman, you know he's a huge proponent of this. It's a natural component from chamomile that produces the ability to modulate GABA, not as much as Selank, but in a more moderate tone. It also helps with Epitalon's ability to reach the pineal gland, so I do recommend doing those two together. L-Theanine is another one I've been a huge fan of for a long time. A lot of people love to pair this with the Selank. Users report it makes the calming effects of Selank even more effective because of its ability to produce alpha brainwaves. Some people like to go down the ashwagandha rabbit hole. It's not really something I'm a big fan of. I think it does turn you into a bit of a robot. I know several people who've been on it, and it's not like you just become completely neutral all the time. But if you're talking about your emotions on a scale of 1 to 10, you're going to get rid of 1 to 3, which a lot of people are really happy with, but you're also going to get rid of 8 through 10. You're never going to feel awesome. You're also never going to feel like shit. Kind of just stay in this somewhat middle ground. I like to experience both sides of life, so I'm not really a big ashwagandha guy. But it is effective when it comes to sleep and relaxing. And the last one I always recommend is omega-3s. I recommend these for almost everybody because a lot of people have inflammation, and omega-3s are incredible at reducing that. And for a lot of people, they don't realize if they're taking peptides and they're not working, as long as they're coming from a good source, the main reason is usually because of some sort of internal inflammation. When we take those omega-3s, the peptides can actually reach the pathways that they're trying to get to make sure they're performing properly. So if you're interested in learning more stuff like this and you want to improve your body in all forms and facets, this is everything I post on this page. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so every time I drop a video, you learn something new, and I will catch you guys in the next one.